how did it get here? I'll just say that. And then what was it like in the High Court? Hello everyone and welcome to a very special Blood Red podcast. It's been a very busy 10 days or so for the Reds on the pitch with obviously United, Genk and Spurs. But what we want to talk about today is strictly off the pitch business. I'm Sean Bradbury on hosting duties today, and I have with me Echo senior reporter and court reporting veteran Johnny Humphries, who was down in London for the Echo, a loan signing from the news team for sport. We were delighted to get over the line for a few days to cover the High Court case between the Reds and New Balance, which for everyone who's followed it, which I'm sure is hundreds and thousands of Reds fans, certainly judging by how many people were reading what Johnny was writing for us on the Echo website from all around the world. It's been a fascinating case that's unfolded, as I say, in the commercial division of the High Court down in London. So myself and Johnny just going to have a quick look through it, see how it all panned out. What was a remarkable few days in court. But Johnny, welcome to the pod. How's things? Have you recovered from your court sessions?
Yeah. No, thanks for having me on. It was an intense case, but it was interesting, and the way it panned out was a surprise to everyone, I think.
That was absolutely fascinating stuff. So we'll start with just how things got here. Obviously, not long after FSG took over the Reds back in 2010, I think in 2011, the initial deal with Warrior, who obviously New Balance is the parent company of Warrior, was put in place. Warrior was the suppliers of the Reds kits for a few seasons, and it moved on to New Balance. They signed a 5-year deal in 2015, which is the end of which was kind of the key crux of this whole case and what would happen after the end of that contract. So how did things get to this stage then, Johnny? Why did it end up in the High Court between Liverpool and New Balance, first of all?
Well, essentially, I think Liverpool have the expiry of the contract with New Balance has come at the perfect time for the club. The success on the pitch, and especially the last 2 seasons, and the feel-good factor under Klopp has meant that the club's probably the most marketable it's ever been.
Yeah.
And if you think that this level of success is the first time the club's achieved anything like this in the social media age, so marketability is a completely different game than it was before that. And I think Liverpool have seen the chance for a fresh start, and obviously we're not sure who made the first approach, whether it was Nike or whether it was some of the other big names that we know have been in discussion with Liverpool, like Puma and Adidas. But essentially, I think Liverpool wanted to. I think the word they charged was supercharge the distribution of their kits, and I think it was a case of striking while the iron's hot. So, unfortunately for Liverpool, they had to contend with the matching clause in New Balance's contract. But I think it was just a case of Liverpool looking out for their own commercial interest, really. There's obviously no room for loyalty in the business game, so I think that's how it got here, really. New Balance obviously didn't want to lose one of their premier clients, but I think the talks between the two broke down, and it was the only thing left to do was to let the courts decide.
So this matching clause, as you mentioned there, was the crux of it. Tell us about that. Like, why did that come into play?
Well, I think it's quite a common occurrence in high level commercial business partnerships. Essentially, it allows the partners to sort of plan ahead and know that they've got the contract will run on for a considerable amount of time. But Liverpool saw it was described in court as a commercial irritant. Yeah. So essentially, it boiled down to New Balance had the chance to match any offer from a competitor coming in. Nike obviously put their offer on the table. Liverpool believe that New Balance wouldn't be able to match it, and New Balance disagreed. So that's how the courts got involved. The matching clause, like I say, I think it was described as a nuisance in court, and something Liverpool were desperate to get out of.
And we very quickly learned, obviously, there was some suggestions ahead of the trial from the initial court papers, which you saw and you wrote about what exactly was on the table from Nike. So what were the terms that were laid out in court as to what they were offering the Reds?
Right, so essentially, Nike were offering £30 million a year in annual rights fees, and that was actually less than what New Balance are offering, are currently paying Liverpool at the moment, and that's £45 million. I think the crux of Liverpool came in the distribution clause, which basically means that Nike had promised to sell Liverpool licensed products through a minimum of 6,000. The word that kept coming up in court was doors. Kept hearing about doors, and doors essentially means retail outlets, and that can be like a physical bricks and mortar store, or online retail, for example, or even a wholesaler. So Nike promised $6,000 and a 20% royalty on all net sales of Liverpool products. Under the matching clause, New Balance had to offer the same, so they would have been contractually obliged to offer that. And Liverpool seemed to believe that wasn't a genuine offer. Nike, the thing wasn't, Liverpool basically admitted that Nike's the terms of Nike's offer were aimed and designed at getting New Balance out of the picture.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just a case of what Nike could offer Liverpool. It was a case of how Nike could get New Balance out of the contract, and so Nike could step in. So this term of $6,000 and the distribution clause was basically a way of trying to free Liverpool up so that they could move ahead with that partnership.
And this was kind of the key discussion point, certainly on day one and into day two of the trial. Let's start at the start then. I don't know what it was like for you in court, but certainly following your extensive updates, which even after anyone who's listened to this pod, I would certainly recommend you go back and just have a look at what Johnny wrote in the live blog each day, and obviously all the stories he did on top of that. But it seemed to be like, it was almost like a football match itself. Like day one seemed to go one way and then it would swing the other. But when New Balance's witnesses were up and all the kind of doors arguments played out on the first day, what did you make of those initial exchanges?
Well, the first day in particular didn't seem to go very well for New Balance. I think one of the slightly misleading things for us watching in court and for anyone following the update was there was kind of two things that came out in court. One was obviously Liverpool thought that New Balance's offer and New Balance's future potential was not as good for them as Nike's. So that question got brought into it quite a lot, especially on day one when New Balance's figures were being analysed and New Balance's emails were being analysed, and certain things came out which didn't look particularly good for them. But what it kind of became clear was that wasn't really important to the question being decided in the court. The question being decided was whether New Balance had tabled a genuine offer and whether they matched the specific terms of the contract. So regardless of whether Nike would eventually be a better partner for Liverpool and offer them greater distribution or offer them more money in the long run, that wasn't what the court was there to decide. So I think, and of course, when you listen to one highly paid, skillful, very persuasive barrister present his arguments, you kind of get swayed his way, and then when the next guy steps up, you get swayed that way. So certainly on day one, it looked like New Balance had made some mistakes in tabling their renewal offer, and you did start to wonder whether they would be able to persuade the judge that their offer was genuine.
But then, certainly again, just from reading it, interested to see what it was like for you in court. It almost felt like it maybe swung the other way a little bit when LFC's witness was cross-examined and on day two. Tell us about that.
Well, yeah. So first up, Billy Hogan, the Chief Commercial Officer for Liverpool, was brought to the witness stand. And again, when New Balance's barrister started to question his motives for the certain things in the Nike contract and question whether he'd prejudged New Balance, you did start to wonder whether the questions on day one were actually relevant to the outcome of the case.
Yeah.
So, like I said before, the main crux of the trial, the main arguments that took up most of the court time were actually won by New Balance. So, the thing that actually decided the case was a kind of a bit of a minor player in day one and two.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to that then. It was three big names brought off the bench, essentially. LeBron, Drake and Serena Williams. And how did these superstars first get introduced in the case, and then why did they become so significant?
Well, on day one, when both sides sort of gave a brief outline of their arguments, each barrister agreed that they didn't see it as critical to the case. So these names essentially got brought in because Nike had promised to, in the marketing clause of their offer, had promised to promote Liverpool products using athletes or influencers of the calibre of Serena Williams, Drake and LeBron James. So that's how that got brought in. Each side kind of said, we'll focus most of our arguments on the distribution clause and this question of doors. And we'll address that briefly, but we don't see that as the sort of key deciding issue. When it came to the closing arguments on day three, a little exchange between Liverpool's barrister, Guy Morpus, QC, and the judge suggested that if that argument went in Liverpool's favour, it would be kind of a silver bullet that would kill the rest of the case off. Rather than getting into the question of good faith and whether New Balance had been genuine in their offer, this was kind of a more simple question of whether that was something that New Balance would be required to match, providing athletes of a certain calibre. Because if it was, they obviously hadn't named any athletes.
Yeah.
So there was, you could not say that they promised athletes of the calibre of LeBron James and etc. So it was kind of a little an issue of creeping significance that when the final submissions were aired at the end, you realise that could be a key deciding thing.
And then what was it like on that last day? So we've covered like the first 3 days of it, but then you went back down to London again on Friday for the final hearing. Quite short and sweet when you were down there on Friday.
Well, absolutely, yeah. The judge came out, announced which way it went, and then the written decision got handed out. So there was a bit of a scramble at the back of the court to get that. To rely on my colleague at the press association to get hold of me a copy for us, but. Yeah, and then it was a case of scrambling through the document. Quickly realised that the judge didn't buy Liverpool's argument about distribution, and he didn't believe that New Balance had acted in recklessly or in bad faith, which I'm sure will be a relief to New Balance executives. So that wouldn't have been a good look for them. But you turn to the last part of his judgment, and he basically said that it is possible to measure the marketability of an athlete. There's lots of different ways of doing it. It doesn't really matter which work method you use. The fact is, it was a measurable term, and that meant that it was something that New Balance were required to match. And he said New Balance had not. They could have offered athletes of the calibre of LeBron James, because let's not forget that Nike hadn't specifically said that LeBron James, Drake, and Serena Williams will be promoting Liverpool products. They said athletes of that calibre will be promoting Liverpool products. So by not specifying what calibre of athletes they could offer, New Balance had failed to match the contract and failed to. So it was there was quite a lot of surprise going on both legal teams. Liverpool's legal team seemed quite pleasantly surprised at the end that that's what had decided it, and I don't think anyone expected it.
No, absolutely. And then one of the last points that was made in court was about the prospect of an appeal. Does that seem quite remote in terms of New Balance looking to appeal? Yeah,
I believe so. The process is that the losing side has to ask the judge in that case for permission to appeal. New Balance basically argued that there was potential grounds that the higher court, the Court of Appeal, could overturn the judgment. There's some quite complex legal arguments about the vagueness of the marketing clause, about whether it was a measurable, matchable term. Judge Tay didn't give that argument much credence. He immediately dismissed their application to appeal. So the last remaining route for New Balance is a written is to write to the Court of Appeal directly, which the Court of Appeal is obviously above the High Court, and ask for permission to appeal. That apparently is quite unlikely, from what I understand. Lawyers in the case suggested that because the judgment was a combination of facts and law, it's harder to argue that the judge made a legal error in his judgment. So essentially, I don't think anyone is expecting an appeal to go ahead at this point. And it seems like I think this is quite a time-sensitive thing as well for whichever company will be producing Liverpool's kit. There's a process that needs to be gone through. The designs need to be finalised. Millions of replica kits need to be produced. So I think the window for an appeal is quite slim. And I think that as it stands, Nike have won the day.
And then obviously you've already told us about the terms of the Nike offer, but there was plenty also said about what they've already got in place and how much they've spent. You know, it seems like they're quite far down the line of preparation for the new kits already.
Well, yes, we heard that Nike spent £6 million on designing the kits and testing prototypes and etc. And I suppose for a company the size of Nike, £6 million is an investment it would make sense to make. I don't think that would have bankrupted them either way, but it just shows the commitment to producing Liverpool's kits and being a partner with Liverpool. I think we also heard that Nike's gone to the suppliers and reserved capacity to produce 2.9 million units of Liverpool replica kits. So I think now that the case is won, that process will be underway, and I would expect production to start soon.
Absolutely. Well, there you have it. A fascinating few days in court, which we were lucky enough to have Johnny reporting on for us. And as I say, please go back and have a look at everything that he put together from London, because it is fascinating stuff, and there's plenty of detail on there. And we'll of course be covering whatever comes next in terms of night kits when we start seeing designs and concept kits and they start rolling out in the factories ahead of next season. So yeah, fascinating stuff. And we'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.